Right now, let's go ahead and listen in live.
Support staff. Lisa Lindsay, I'm the assistant prosecutor who's assigned to try this case.
And I'm Mike Glenn. I am the other assistant prosecutor that's assigned to try this case.
James White, Chief of Police, Detroit.
Sergeant Javaris Reed, officer charged with the case. Detective Brad Comer, also officer in charge of the case.
Donna McClure, captain of homicide.
Lieutenant Matthew Bray, Homicide Task Force.
Rebecca McKay, commander, major crimes.
Okay. Thank you. This massive investigation was conducted for over a year in conjunction with local, state, and federal law enforcement partners. This investigation spanned 5 states and 3 countries. Voluminous documents and amounts of documents and evidence were recovered, analyzed, scrutinized, and then summarized to the tune of many terabytes worth of digital data. The investigator's report in this case is 181 pages. The states that I referenced earlier are Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Texas, and California. The 3 countries that I referenced earlier are, of course, the United States of America, England, and France. The law enforcement officers that I referenced, approximately 71 plus officers worked on this case, again, both local, state, interstate, and federal. There were 87 plus civilian witnesses involved in this case so far. Of course, we had body-worn camera evidence. Over 77 body-worn camera evidence was recovered and analyzed and looked at, and that translates into hundreds of hours of video. Video interviews, there were 44 of them, again, over 100 hours of that video, and also video surveillance evidence, 24 different locations, and numerous green light surveillance video locations in Detroit, again, over hundreds of hours of worth of video that had to be examined and looked at. Of course, we had cell phone extractions in this case. Over 40 cell phones were examined, and that alone was over 2 terabytes of data. We had over 300 pieces of evidence that was collected. There were 134 search warrants executed, 94 items of evidence sent to the Michigan State Police Crime Lab to be analyzed. There was Cash App and PNC bank fraud. Over $30,000 worth was stolen, and again, more is coming in. There were 2 watches that you will hear me refer to earlier that I'll talk about later. One was worth over $6,000 and the other was worth $7,500. We also have a Range Rover that was worth between $72,000 and $81,000 that are also a part of this case, and those numbers are according to Kelley Blue Book. The total data received, again, several terabytes of data. And to try to encapsulate that down, if one person received and looked at all of this digital evidence in this case on a 24/7 basis, it would take them years for them to go through. That's kind of the magnitude of just the digital evidence in this case. Everything I'm about to say are alleged facts. The defendant is, of course, that we are charging today, of course, is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And on April the 22nd of 2023, last year, the Detroit Police Department received a civilian parking complaint, and officers were dispatched to the area of 9901 Coyle Street in the city of Detroit. Officers arrived and observed a white Range Rover blocking the driveway. They investigated further and noticed what appeared to be blood on the interior of the vehicle that was blocking the driveway. They secured the Range Rover, they tagged it as evidence, and towed it to the Detroit Police Department tow yard. The registered owner of that white Range Rover was discovered to be Dr. Devon Hoover of 150 West Boston Boulevard in Detroit. Detroit police officers went to that address of 150 West Boston Boulevard that same evening and noted that the driveway gate leading to and from the rear of the house to be wide open. They were unable to contact anyone at that time at the residence, both knocking on the front and back doors of the house. The next day, on April the 23rd, 2023, Detroit Police Department received a 911 call from Dr. Hoover's family requesting a well-being check of his home, as they had been unable to reach him after he failed to come and see his dying mother in the state of Indiana. The Detroit Police Department went to 150 West Boston Boulevard and noticed that the driveway gate leading to the rear of the house was wide open. Further investigation revealed the presence of what appeared to be blood on the rear exterior side of the back entrance door of the home. A decision was made to force entry into the premises, and during that protective sweep of the home, Dr. Devon Hoover was found deceased in the third floor attic crawl space. He was face down. He was only wearing socks. He was wrapped in a blood-soaked carpet. He appeared to have been shot in the head. An autopsy was conducted, and the autopsy concluded that Dr. Hoover was indeed shot twice in the head, and it was the opinion of the Assistant Wayne County Medical Examiner that the death was caused indeed by these 2 gunshot wounds, and the manner of death was homicide. After the discovery of Dr. Hoover, the Detroit Police Department's Crime Scene Services Unit arrived and processed the scene. Subsequent investigation revealed that the victim's cell phone, his wallet, his money, his financial transaction devices, credit cards, and designer watches were missing from the home. The investigation revealed that almost immediately following his murder, multiple fraudulent financial transactions were made from Dr. Hoover's various bank accounts. These transactions spawned for several days after that discovery. An analysis of the victims of Dr. Hoover's cell phone records revealed that Dr. Hoover had approximately 4,000 communications with a number attributed to a Desmond Burks, who resided at 9924 Sussex Street in the city of Detroit. The text messages established that Desmond Burks and Dr. Hoover were in an intimate relationship with one another, and that on occasion Desmond Burks would charge Dr. Hoover for these sexual services. The investigation of this case was further complicated by the fact that many witnesses were extremely reluctant to come forward to share sensitive and personal information. The analysis also indicates that the day Dr. Hoover was murdered, Dr. Hoover's cell phone traveled from his West Boston Boulevard address to the area of Desmond Burke's address on Sussex. Dr. Hoover's phone appears to return to West Boston for a short period and then travels back to the area of Desmond Burke's residence on Sussex again before traveling to Fairlane Mall in Dearborn. Dr. Hoover's cell phone never returns back to his residence on West Boston. Numerous pieces of corroborating evidence place Dr. Hoover's cell phone in the same location as Desmond Burke's. The evidence includes, but certainly is not limited to, what I'm about to say. Dr. Hoover's cell phone detail records, Google account search warrant returns, Desmond Burke's cellular phone detail records, Range Rover geolocation data, Project Greenlight video, 9901 Coyle Street video, and Golden Fantasy Jewelry Store video surveillance. Other physical evidence was discovered directly linking Dr. Hoover's property to Desmond Burke's. On the date of the homicide, Desmond Burke's is seen on surveillance camera parking Dr. Hoover's Range Rover near 9901 Coyle Street. He being Mr. Burks, is seen limping away carrying a backpack, and his fingerprint was discovered inside that Range Rover. At the time, Desmond Burks was known to walk with a limp due to previously being shot in the hip. Search warrants conducted at Dr. Burke's residence led to the recovery of one of Dr. Burke's Cartier watches that I mentioned earlier. Dr. Hoover purchased this watch in the year 2020 for approximately $6,000. An additional search warrant concluded at another recently discovered address of Desmond Burke's back on April of this year, 2024, led to the discovery of another of Dr. Hoover's Cartier watches, a watch that Dr. Hoover purchased one day prior to his homicide. That watch was worth approximately $7,500. Based on all of this evidence and much more further evidence, which we will outline in more detail in court, as a result of all of that, we are charging Desmond Burks today with 1 count of first-degree premeditated murder, count 2, felony murder, count 3, larceny of over $20,000, count 4, using a computer to commit a crime. The maximum imprisonment there is between 10 years or more, but less than 20 years. Count 5, possession of a firearm by a felon. Count 6, felony firearms second offense, which goes to count 1. Count 7, felony firearms second offense, which goes to count 2. And count 8, felony firearms second offense, that goes to count 5. Please remember, as I said earlier, that this defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And this is the same Desmond Burks that we charged on May 17, 2024, with another second-degree murder homicide. On May 17, 2024, we charged Desmond Burks, who was 33 at the time, in connection with a road rage incident that killed Mr. Salah, 87, of Dearborn. On October 17, 2024, at approximately 6:45 p.m., Detroit police officers were dispatched to an intersection of West Chicago and Greenfield Road for reports of an unconscious male laying in the street. Upon their arrival, officers located the victim, Mr. Salah, unresponsive, suffering from trauma to the head. Medics arrived on the scene and transported him to a local hospital for treatment. On May 11th, Mr. Salah unfortunately succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced deceased. It is alleged while approaching the intersection on West Chicago and Greenfield Road that Mr. Salah's vehicle bumped into the rear of Desmond Burke's vehicle, the car that he was driving. They both got out of their cars, and there was a verbal altercation. It is further alleged that we announced on the 17th of May that during this altercation, Mr. Burks punched Mr. Salah, leaving him lying in the street before fleeing the scene. And as I said before, he later died of those injuries. I should note that Mr. Burks is currently in the Wayne County Jail on a $1 million bond, no 10%. His lawyer in that case requested that he be evaluated for competency, and that request was made on May the 24th, 2024. The next court date for him in that case is September the 3rd, 2024, before Judge Kenneth King of the 36th District Court. That hearing is a competency review date hearing. You will receive an electronic copy of the press release in this case after this press conference has been concluded. We are told that the arraignment is tomorrow at 10:30 a.m., and that's all the information I have about the arraignment tomorrow in this case. So I'd like to invite the Chief now to make some remarks.
Thank you, Madam Prosecutor. All right, I just want to thank the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office for their collaboration. It's a very complex and comprehensive case. They all did incredible work. As you've heard, this investigation is very detailed and very comprehensive. I want to say thank you, a personal thank you to one of the hardest working teams in the Detroit Police Department. The men and women of the Detroit Police Department do an incredible job, and our homicide team has been working tirelessly on this case. I can't tell you the many meetings and debriefings and briefings that we have had. You've heard how lengthy the investigator's report is, and a lot of work went into this case. I also want to give a special thank you to Lieutenant Matthew Bray, Sergeant Jarvis Reed, Sergeant Steve Ford, Detective Brad Comer, who's the OIC, and Detective Sarah Markle, who could not join us here today, and certainly the command team led by our dynamic Assistant Chief and Chuck Fitzgerald, Deputy Chief Kerry Sloan, and certainly our commander, Rebecca McKay. So thank you all for your hard work, and certainly thank you to the family and the loved ones of Dr. Hoover, who have been very patient with this department, very patient with this process. As you heard with the number of investigations that had to happen and people talked to from around the country and outside of the country, and as you will hear as the case unfolds in court, this took a lot of time and a lot of hours and a lot of work. Again, that's all I have at this time.
And thank you, Chief. And before I take any questions, and I'll take a few questions, I just wanted to kind of echo what the Chief said on our side. When I talk about the work that was put into this case by these prosecutors, support staff, detectives in my office, and you're more than support staff, Krista. And so I'm talking about every weekend. I'm talking about almost 24/7. I'm talking about interviews, countless work on a daily basis for over a year. And they have other cases to try as well. So with that, I'll take some questions if you like.
Chief Prosecutor, what made the difference? Like, why now?
Why now? Because we came to a good place in the investigation to be comfortable to charge this case, that we could do it beyond a reasonable doubt as we have to stand up in court and defend it. So we were not ready, and as y'all know me well enough by now, we take our time. On cases that we can charge quickly, we charge quickly. On cases that we can't, it doesn't matter to me what people say. We're going to take our time to make sure that we get it right. So we feel comfortable at this point in time. We feel very comfortable, extremely comfortable at this point in time, that we can prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. But it was a lot of work to even get to this space.
Was there something about the case that was filed in May that helped you reach the finish line?
No, completely unrelated.
Charges so that
Completely unrelated.
things weren't disclosed, or, oh, by the way.
Well, we were very careful, obviously, after we charged him with that case. But again, the case at that time this case was nowhere near ready to be charged. And the investigation was really going forward at that time. So,
Can you explain this, you mentioned these other countries.
mhm.
As I listen to your narrative, there's some thefts and obviously homicide. What are the connections to these other countries?
Again, we will. I've said more in this press conference than I have probably since we charged the mayor many years ago. And so anything else that is to be said in this case will come out in court.
Was Burks the person of interest who was arrested shortly after Dr. Hoover's murder?
Yes.
Can you explain the length, duration of their acquaintance and what may have been motive in this case?
Again, as I said in my remarks, there were 4,000 text messages between the two. We know that the evidence will show that they had an intimate relationship, as I spoke of earlier. And beyond that, I'm not going to say anything. That's saying a lot right there.
You can't say if they knew each other for years, for example.
I can, but I'm not going to.
Understand.
Handgun, gun recovered?
Again, I've said what I'm going to say in this case.
Was he released because of no murder weapon?
No, he was not released for that reason. Not at all.
Was he traveling to these states and countries?
Again, no. But we will, again, point out the significance of those other countries and states when we go to court.
And then he was under surveillance all this time, so to speak.
That's a chief question.
Chief, what was going on with Brooks after his death?
Yeah, we continued to work the investigation. We wanted to know certain aspects of his movements, and no one was beyond who were already victimized, were at any risk. We were comfortable with that.
So not related at all to his work?
Not related. The two cases are not related at all.
Strictly a personal?
One was a road rage incident, and the other was what I described today. Not related at all.
And then nothing had to do with one or the other?
One had nothing to
Something that-
no. One had nothing to do with the other.
Can you elaborate at all on witness reluctance and how that might have, in a time sense, impeded your investigation?
Well, whenever we have reluctant witnesses in any investigation, it impedes things, sometimes greatly, sometimes even longer than that, sometimes years before we can go back and try a case. But I think based on what you've heard me say about the nature of the relationship that Dr. Hoover had with this defendant, I think you can kind of extrapolate from there why people would not want to come forward. It's a very difficult, intimate, personal situation.
And with the Range Rover being at Burke's location, yes, but it took time to develop video of...
It took time to do everything. And everything that can be done in a case where a car was involved was done. I've been doing this for a very long time, and new technology was more than I've ever seen before in many aspects of this case. And so what they can do now to help with investigation is phenomenal. And I must say that we had pretty broad cooperation with all the entities that we had to contact to help us put this case together.
So, Chief, it wasn't, let me ask you one question.
Sure.
It wasn't like video of him getting out of the Range Rover and him being a suspect. It continued to develop, or is that how it worked out?
Yeah, so we're not going to talk about the specifics of the investigation. That part will come out in court. But we're very confident in this case and very confident in the hard work and men and women of the Detroit Police Department and what they have brought forward as far as evidence is concerned regarding this case.
B-U-R-K-E-S? Burks, how do you spell?
Burks.
Do we have a schedule for the arraignment or any other future court dates?
The only thing that we received from the 36th District Court this morning is what I've already said, and that's that we were told literally before I walked in here that the arraignment would be tomorrow at 10:30. That's all the information that I have.
Prosecutor Worthy, can you address whether Dr. Hoover was attempting to end this relationship?
I don't know that. And again, to the extent that we can have to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt and meet the elements that we've charged of each crime, we know what we need to know. I can't tell you, nor would I, even if I knew, the intimacies beyond that. It was an intimate relationship, and that's really all I can say at this point.
You say how long, perhaps?
I don't know how long.
Appreciating you can't share details now, are you able to say if you know or believe you know as to what led to that happening that day?
Again, I'm not going to go any further than what I've already
No,
done.
but I'm asking if you feel you know that versus being able to share that now.
I'm not even going to comment, because if I say I know, you're going to ask me what I know.
All right, I get you.
Yeah.
Chief, was there one thing that sealed the deal for this case?
Well, it was 180 plus pages of things that really sealed the deal for this case. But again, you know, it's been ongoing work for a year, and very high level elements of the investigation that came together. You know, once we recognized that it was a personal relationship type situation, we were confident that this wasn't a situation where other people were going to be targeted by the suspect. We were able to focus in on the elements and aspects of that investigation, but not one thing.
I apologize if this has been asked regarding countries. Like, how did this span other countries and states?
Again, evidence in the case led us to have to contact individuals and companies in other countries and other states. We basically followed where we followed where the evidence took us, no matter where it took us. And again, this is only the tip of the iceberg. You know, as we've both said, it's 181 pages of an investigator's report that was put together for us to be able to bring it to the magistrate and get him arraigned. All right.
Has Mr. Burks offered up any comment to investigators about this case?
You know, that's definitely an area that I can't go into. That would be unethical, and I'd be risking my bar license. So I'm never going to comment on what I know what a defendant says, especially outside of a court venue. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be sending you guys the press release.
You were just listening live to a press conference led by Wayne County Prosecutor Kym Worthy and Detroit Police Chief James White. In April 2023, Dr. Devon Hoover, who you see on your screen here, was found in his Boston Edison home's attic crawl space, shot twice in the head, only wearing socks and wrapped in bedding. It was announced the investigation involved more than 70 local, state, and federal officers spanning 5 states and 3 countries. We learned Desmond Burks has been charged in Dr. Hoover's death. He's already in custody, facing 8 charges, including first-degree premeditated murder and larceny of more than $20,000. More on the relationship between Dr. Hoover and the defendant in this case, plus the other murder Burks is accused of committing, coming up on CBS News Detroit at noon.